I prefer.
Yeah, good morning, Heinz.
Good morning.
Yeah, we're here today to talk about a quite interesting topic, which is Web 3.0 and how that can be scaled in business and industry. So
Yeah,
perhaps
I guess we take it a bit like DLT360 over coffee style. So this is
exactly. So Heinz, if you quickly introduce yourself and then I take the honors afterwards.
yeah. So my fairly long history started as a student in the early days of digitization, went all the way over digitalization, all the way over digital transformation in automation companies, in telecom companies, and in machine building, and in a large global end user where I was responsible for the global digital transformation. There is also where I got first in touch with blockchain very early in, I would say 2015-ish. So
That's actually quite early, considering that 2017 seemed to have been the year where at least kind of a lot of things happened
right.
with a number of ICOs and so on. Yeah, perhaps quickly to myself. Yeah, I'm working currently for quite a while actually, and in an international medtech company. Have been in a number of different roles, being responsible for the IT department on a manufacturing side, then moved on into a more architectural, strategic function, being responsible for certain topics in the regional setup of this organization, and currently working in the cybersecurity space. So also similar to you, quite a breadth of different roles and topics, but always related to effectively in a very industrial, big
So we
global
can
player.
claim we have one leg in the Web3 world and the other, at least one other leg in the business and industry deep
I think
insight perspective.
I think we can say that. So perhaps kind of like the first topic which we should talk about is so where are we with Web3? What is the current status? What's your view on that?
Yeah, since I was actually driving digital transformation in a very large global company and trying as an innovator to introduce blockchain fairly early, I noticed, of course, there are early enthusiastic experiments where they are mainly based on private permission blockchains of some, let's say, large vendors promoting this approach already in the kind you mentioned that 2017, 18 was one of those times. And then there were the contrary. There were these kind of shiny sparks, these luxury consumer brands or the say consumer retention activities when NFTs popped up. This was actually, but in the big picture, in my stomach feeling was it's a lot of overpromising and a lot of under-delivering, as so typical for radical innovations also before blockchain. So this is not untypical at all.
And I think this is something which we have to recognize. I was reading an interesting book called Web3 Marketing, which was kind of like a reflection. And when you read the first few pages, there are actually two major adoption areas. The one is decentralized finance, DeFi, which was pretty much the first when smart contracts kind of became available on Ethereum. And then the second one is actually kind of like this boom of everything in NFT without a real use case behind that. And that's kind of where we stand at this moment in time.
Yeah,
So
from corporate perspective, I think one of the big challenges is that a lot of the infrastructure, the fabric in society and economy is not yet really there. So from identities to the legal and business frameworks, a lot of regulations. So that keeps it so far actually to a kind of a playground of some innovators and kept it from really scaling.
interesting that you mentioned effectively regulations. I mean, I looked the other day at I think it was a video, which was looking at the situation how it develops at the moment in Dubai. Yeah, kind of the next Cardano summit is going to be in Dubai again. and Dubai seems to kind of tries to head this problem with regulation off by actually having a regulation framework set in stone, which gives, and that was kind of the key message, security to move forward. Yeah, so you know from a regulatory perspective what you can expect, and you know the boundaries, and that enables in a number of cases. I think this is one of the elements which also contributes, mainly also in the business and industry area, that there is this uncertainty about the regulatory side of things.
Absolutely. I forgot to mention, you know that, Torsten, I'm just completing a master thesis and my topic is EU digital identity. Is it a blessing or is it a threat for business and industry? So there is a lot of stuff actually also happening in the European Union where you can be skeptical, but also some of these so-called next generation internet initiatives are fairly interesting. So there could be some helpful momentum, but also, of course, always with regulation, it's can also be seen critical. But it's not the first time. You are too young, Torsten, but I remember, what is it now, in 30 years ago, 1994-ish, when I was living in Austria these days, and the same, I think, was true in Germany, where you were probably at this time. The Telephone and Telegraph Ministry was trying to, let's say, regulate and, yeah, to some extent, control the internet. So,
and I think that is perhaps kind of taking us to the next question, which kind of like we might want to discuss. So clearly, blockchain technology is a radical innovation. Kind of when you read the paper from when Bitcoin in itself was kind of conceptualized, the concept in itself might have been in the brewing, but kind of what came out of that one is actually quite a fundamental shift, and it is using technology in itself in an ingenious way. But the question is now kind of like, what is blocking the adoption of innovation? Why isn't this going faster?
That's a good point. But you know, when I look back in my career, I had this feeling. It's kind of a déjà vu moment. So when I was a teenager, I came with automation and was selling that to mechanical engineers. When I was a startup entrepreneur in the 80s, it was about PC-based technologies selling to mainframe people. And you know yourself, when then mobile communication and cloud came, I think you were very, very into this topic. How difficult it was in the beginning to convince server center promoters in companies to go into cloud architectures?
I can remember when kind of like I was working at that moment in time as an enterprise architect, and we had obviously the problem, and I was, as I mentioned before, the IT manager for a manufacturing site. We still had to rack up servers. We still had to kind of put them in a rack, order them, rack them up, install operating systems. So it took weeks to get effectively a project running. Now it's effectively on the press of a button. Within 2 minutes, you spin up a virtual machine somewhere in the data center of your choice. And I remember when the first time we kind of started to touch cloud technology, the defending position was that cannot work, and it's for sure not secure. And then you saw effectively this kind of like how shall I say that, tipping point moment where by a sudden technology was adapted in a fast pace. Cloud services were cloud first. By a sudden, everything didn't consider the server and the rack anymore. And a lot of big companies, also the one I've been working for, kind of got rid of their own server, own data centers, and kind of shifted a lot of the technology effectively to the service
There
providers.
you're touching a key point to us. You're always, as innovator, you're always coming with your beautiful radical ideas and are confronting actually people that grew up and established their positions in the previous technology wave. So now we are approaching, we're coming with Web3 with some really good value propositions, I think, but we are talking to a buying center, if I may call it that way, of people who are struggling with their Web2 and their cloud security, their cloud, let's say, their fairly complex architectures. So they are not really waiting for Web3 to knock on the door, isn't it?
Yeah, it looks like this, and it looks to be like that blockchain kind of, whilst it had quite a momentum in 2017, where perhaps the technology was not yet ready, kind of for an adoption in the context of business and industry. There were a lot of cases where there was a lot of over-promising and then heavily under-delivering. I remembered the first time when kind of I heard about smart contracts, and I couldn't even get this concept into my head. How can it work, and how would that actually be beneficial? So you had to see effectively the first adoption use cases in the DeFi space. So yeah, kind of like buying center is an interesting topic. So what do you think should the approach be? Um, is it overselling the technology and under solving the problem?
So what we are doing as a first step is DLT360, and I want to, let's say, take this starting point with the buying center. First of all, I think it's about identifying, let me call it, killer applications. So where everyone without much effort understands that really helps my daily business operation. There is value behind, and that's not simply a talk about NFT or DeFi. That needs to go deeply into the understanding of supply chains and where actually real pain points are in today's digital transformation. And that's so this kind of reddish upper front, we are trying now to identify. The goal is, what is it, Torsten, 5 to 10 in the beginning, really attractive applications which are deep down blockchain based, but we are not, first of all, knocking on the door and say, guys, we sell you blockchain. We come with value propositions. Right. So what we are hoping now with Fund 12 is that the Cardano Catalyst community allows us to continue this I would say, well grounded approach. It's not a fast approach, so it has nothing to do with noisy PR and marketing. It kind of infiltrates business and industry from a lot of different angles. But the key thing, Torsten, as you mentioned, is to get let's say, product market fit undoubtedly in place, because without that, nothing will fly.
And I think that's also kind of one of the elements which we are kind of trying to bring in here. We deliberately didn't start building a technical solution on the blockchain, but effectively use this new introduced concept phase from Project Catalyst to really start to evaluate, is there really a underlying problem? Is there a product market fit, and have then these conversations effectively with the context in industry and in business to get the verification of, yep, there is actually a problem to be solved. There is a market, and ultimately kind of like that then is leading to the adoption in the market, meaning kind of like it becomes self-sustainable, it becomes a viable business model in itself. And it is creating actually adoption of the technology as such, meaning kind of we see transaction volume increasing on Cardano.
So I guess this was our round trip, DLT360 over coffee, to explain what we are actually doing, how we are approaching this ambition to scale Web3, but specifically also Cardano in business and industry. So I can just warmly ask Cardano Catalyst community to support us in the Fund 12 voting.